I'm Angela, the chair of Democrats Abroad Global Black Caucus.
And I'm Adrienne, and I lead the Global Black Caucus Get Out the Vote team.
I live in Germany and I vote in Florida.
And I vote in DC from Sweden. DC statehood.
Welcome to the Power to the People podcast.
Angela launched this podcast in 2018 to drive conversations for expats around the issues facing the Black community back home.
And to motivate you to vote in the U.S. elections. I know we've been saying this for a while, but the 2024 elections are so important and sitting on the sidelines isn't an option.
I mean, no, it's not. Do not tune out. Instead, tune into this podcast and share this with all the woke people you know, and the not so woke, and definitely those who need to be woke.
You get the idea. If you're an American of voting age living overseas, get your voting act together now. Votefromabroad.org is the place to start.
Do it.
Welcome, everybody, to our post-DNC episode of Power to the People podcast. Adrienne and I have returned from Chicago, not necessarily to our overseas homes, but I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I'm from. And Adrienne, are you in DC right now?
I am. I'm home in the nation's capital, DC statehood. Thanks for queuing me up.
Yeah, and today we have a really fabulous guest. Terry Watkins. He was a delegate from China for Democrats Abroad in the DNC, and he is also the chair of our China Global Black Caucus. Welcome, Terry.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here to talk and spiel, and I had a wonderful time. It was great to meet you, Miss Angela. It was great to meet you as well. Miss Adrienne, we choreographed a dance together for our little video. So if y'all see that, check us out on Twitter. I got dance moves too. But yeah, thank you for having me.
He does. Thank you. And actually, Terry takes all the credit for choreograph that on the spot. I saw him in the line. You know, they do that 360 camera at our delegate welcome party. I saw Terry in the line. I grabbed it. I was like, "Look, you coming with me?" And he choreographed. He asked the cameraman, "So how long do we have? What are the angles? And how do you know about all of that stuff? Why were you the perfect person for me to grab?"
Well, so I mean, I may not look it. This isn't my normal. I'm normally not as big as what you saw. It's COVID weight, but I actually took dance and was in a company when I was in high school, and as a hobby, like when I'm in China, if you don't see me, maybe I'll show you some videos. I actually take dance classes during like as a little breather. So instead of like sometimes I go to the gym, sometimes I take a hip hop class, sometimes I do that. So I was dancing since I was like 13, basically. And I have that training. And then in musical theater, you gotta have to have that. So yeah, I can do a little bit.
Yeah,
Now,
that sounds
musical.
great.
Doesn't it sound fun? Now, Angela, did you know he was into musical theater? Is that what took you to China?
Yeah, that is. I graduated Marquette University. Shout out to Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Hey, Purple State. And I got my bachelor's in theater arts with a performance emphasis, and I double majored in Spanish literature and language. So that's why I can speak Spanish and do that. And my fourth year in college, I took a Chinese course and I just fell in love with the language. I fell in love with the culture. And I told myself then and there at 18, I'm going to go to China. So I sent in my application. Originally thinking I was going to be an English teacher. And then there was this company that said, hey, we're doing English language theater education, and you got a bachelor's degree in theater. So from 2017 onward, that's where I was. And that's kind of how I found Democrats Abroad.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That you went there for dance. I mean, that's very different from what I hear other people saying when they're in
Right.
China. We have a lot of English teachers there. A
Right.
lot.
Well, it's more for acting, but I just incorporate dance into it. But yeah.
Yeah, cool.
See the arts, I love that. I'm just sorry. Shout out to who was your arts teacher? My mother, public school, my aunt, public school.
Mm.
Thank you, arts. Oh, and you know what? I'm jumping ahead of myself, but Project 25 says something about cutting out the Department of Education. It just hurt my heart because here you are educating, bringing our culture around the world. Um, so I don't know. That just got to me all of a sudden. That just made me feel sad to think if that happened. But that's one reason Terry's here, isn't he, Angela? To make sure that we
Yeah,
don't let Project
no,
20.
well, Project 2025, and we'll include a link for the video from our Democrats Abroad event about that. We had a really good speaker, Thomas Zimmer. He's an expert on how crazy Project 2025 is, that all the things that they want to do. And I just have to throw this in because you don't hear this very often, but they want to eliminate porn, which is like, what a joke.
What am I gonna do? Oh
What?
my
Oh my!
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Mainly because if you look at the
God.
ruins of Pompeii, then you see that there's porn all over the walls in certain areas, the red light district of Pompeii, before it was, destroyed by a volcano. Terry,
It's always been with us, but that's what
yes,
they'll say that's what the fall of Pompeii. But
yeah, that's right. But okay, well, Terry, did you see the Chinese breakdancing team for the Olympics?
I have not been able to. I hope they were better than the Australian team. No offense,
Yeah.
but I'm sure they very. I'll be on like in China. There's so many people and so many things. Like everybody, uh, somebody can dance. I hope they were. I'm guessing they were good. I'm hoping they were good. But they're very good at re restyling something and then remanufacturing it to their own taste and to do it very good. They love group work projects. So many times it's like big dances, big things like that. They're very good. But, part of my education there or how I teach is a lot of times they have issues with creativity and like making new things. It's why when I teach in theater, I actually incorporate a lot of Black American literature. I remember teaching Maya Angelou, and I think I don't know if it was Color Purple. It was something very, very Black and very, very Black American. And I remember teaching that to my kids. And I felt like, what an amazing opportunity to introduce our culture in a meaningful way that does not portray us in like, because they have movies and stuff, and unfortunately that negative stereotype of like criminality and poverty still pervades and persists in our media. But it was just nice to be able to share that aspect of our culture.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. But let's not deviate for too long. Let's talk about Kamala Harris and
Right,
the
right.
myths that we want to
So
dispel.
as Adrian said, I'm doing a series that I've been doing for actually a couple of years now. It's called Debunking Mistruths. And how I came about this series, it actually didn't come from mistruths from Republicans. It came from sort of this I think that there were elements on not I don't want to call them far left, but kind of the populist left that saw Kamala Harris and then immediately because she was in criminal justice and I think she threatened a couple of people by her ascension politically, they start digging up her record. And this is very common for all candidates to be scrutinized under, media and things. But what I found was that there was a very surface level, unclear, and targeted bias towards her. A lot of it because she's a African American slash South Asian woman. And a lot of it simply because people mistrust that type of profession. So what I've done is I've made kind of a series of graphic videos, and I've sourced them at the end. And I call them Debunking Mistruths, and they're the Kamala Harris series. And I found five major um, things that are commonly used against Kamala Harris that revolve around her record as Attorney General and District Attorney. These are marijuana, uh, DNA testing, her record on truancy, her record on prison labor in California, and the last one is kind of obscure, but her record on banking and how she dealt with fraud in her state. So today, because I don't want to be too long, we can maybe focus on the easiest one, which is marijuana.
Right. Well, what about that? I mean, okay, in California, cannabis is legal for medical and recreational use. So this was
Right.
this before the legalization or
Yes,
after?
this is all before the legalization. So so that everyone knows on the podcast, you guys kind of have to know her record. She was district attorney of San Francisco from January 8th, 2004 to January 3rd, 2011. So 2004 to 2011, marijuana is still legal. She was attorney general from 2011 to 2017. There's still a period where it
Wait
is
a minute,
illegal,
Terry, did you say still legal, still illegal?
illegal,
Okay. For
illegal.
2004 to 2011, it was illegal. That was when she was district attorney in San Francisco.
Yes. And then you have her as AG of California, and she was that from 2011 to 2017. That was 6 years. Now, by the end, I'm not sure. I think there was before she came in, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor, and he signed a bill that basically decriminalized basic possession of it across the state. So it wasn't legal, but it was, it wasn't a big deal. And then by the time she becomes senator, she's senator of California for about 4 years, 2017 and 2021. That's when you start getting that like true legalization process. And then, as we all know, she became vice president from 2021 and is still vice president now. So a lot of her criticism comes from her time as DA, which she was for 7 years, and AG, which she was for 6 years. So before we start that, I want the audience to know this is the time frame we're working in. All right. Now, uh, the first myth that typically comes with marijuana that people go for her is uh she locked up a bunch of people. If you were Tyrone with a dollop of weed in your bag, or you were smoking on your lawn or at a party or blah, 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 she would lock you up. And I put it as Kamala Harris prosecuted cases for marijuana possession as district attorney of San Francisco. The truth is, she never prosecuted cases for marijuana possession, for simple possession. If you just own weed or were using weed, she never even bothered prosecuting you. What would happen in the record, and we know this because of Nikki Solis, who was a public defender at the time, she would plead down larger cases. So let's say you got in trouble for selling weed or growing mass quantities of weed. That was at the time in California a felony. And a felony could elicit jail time. You could ruin your career. You could ruin your job. That was on your record. So she said, we're not going to do that. I'm going to use a political maneuver, and I can source you to what it is later. I'm going to use a judicial maneuver that will plead down your case from sales to possession. So when you look at these lists, like in Mercury News and all these fact checks that list the amount of people who are on the docket and record for possession cases, they're actually not possession. They're sales cases or largest cases that she was like, I'm not going to send you for jail for this. I'm just going to fine you $100 and you're going to be on your way. Another thing was that a lot of these cases were wiped off of their record. So there's this there's this tangent where it's like, oh, well, when she convicted, that's going to follow people and they got to report it and they're going to jobs. She created a program called Back on Track, which was one of the first of its kind and became a model, not just for California, but nationwide, where if you were a nonviolent offender, sales case, small theft, things of that nature, you could enter into this program and you would get job training, mental health services, things that you needed to become a productive member of society. And if you stayed in there and you graduated from the program, they would seal your cases, your document. No one could read it. No one could do anything about it. And then you could live your life fine. You wouldn't have this weight carrying over you. And she was one of the first prosecutors to do that. No other prosecutor was doing that in the state of California at the time. So that's part of the reason why I was gravitated to her. The second myth that kind of goes into this is Kamala Harris incarcerated thousands and thousands of Black men for nonviolent marijuana related things. And I kind of already covered this. The truth is, as far as marijuana was concerned, and again, this was not for simple possession, a total of 45 people in her 7 years as DA ever went to state prison for a marijuana related case. That isn't just marijuana, that's hashish, that's other things, that's nonviolent drug cases. That's 45 people in 7 years. That is a 2/3 reduction than her predecessor, Hallinan, who prosecuted and put, way more people in for jail for these cases. And we don't know if these are larger violent crimes that she just pleaded down to do this. We don't have the time or sentencing, but what we do know is that it wasn't for simple possession. So the idea that she put in all these Black men and contributed to mass incarceration is just false, especially considering the fact that we have the incarceration numbers and we can see that during her time as DA in San Francisco and as Attorney General in California, incarceration for Black men, Black people, and the general public was on the decline. So a lot of people will then come and say, well, her prosecution rate was very, very high. She had a very good record at prosecuting, and it was higher than her predecessors. And to them, I say, of course it was. You should have a high prosecution record. Because if you have a low prosecution record, what it means is that you're a prosecutor and you're pursuing cases that you cannot win. And you're basically wasting your tax dollar resources from the people. And you're saying, well, I'm going to pursue all these frivolous cases and not get justice for the people they accuse. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of how our justice system works. Her job is for the people. Her job is to say, like, if someone beats you, if someone commits this law infringement to you, to the city, to our order, she's supposed to make sure that our tax dollars are spent and she can prosecute that case. If she's not prosecuting the case, then her job is meaningless and she's wasting dollars. Now, that doesn't mean you want her to have, she also gets to recommend the sentencing. That is something that I think is important to talk about. Like, is she recommending harsh sentences, light sentences? And that really is up to the jurisprudence of the judge. But as far as prosecuting, yes, you should want a prosecutor with a very, very high rate. Otherwise, they're not useful, in my opinion.
Right. I agree. So basically, what you're saying is that people are misinterpreting A, what her job was, and B,
Right.
what actually happened. I just want to mention for everyone that there are at least 4 states with cannabis on the ballot this year. So if you feel like people shouldn't be arrested for it, please, people who vote in Arkansas, Florida, North Dakota, and South Dakota, please vote yes on your ballot initiatives
Right.
so that this doesn't have to be an issue
Right.
anymore.
Now
Exactly.
Right.
vote puff puff pass. Vote puff puff pass. Where's that? Arkansas.
Arkansas, Florida, that's a big one. I mean, it surprises me that cannabis is not legal in Florida. I think it is medically, but I
It's
mean,
surprisingly is legal here in Missouri, and we're a red state. And you wouldn't surprise, like, it's a popular, it's a tax incentive. I don't partake, of course. I would never partake.
oh well,
I'm kidding. No.
okay, whatever. I'm like, I don't even. It's not necessary for you to declare yourself cannabis free.
Yeah.
There are people who do. There are people
And
who do.
that's fine. That's fine. It's a little joke.
There,
But yeah, so this is a very popular issue. It reaches across all lines politically. It deeply affects, and this for in talking to our Black people, it deeply affects our community because for decades we have been um, the primary targets for law enforcement to be heavy-handed with. I remember in college there was a study where it says white people and Black people confess to the same amount of non-recreational drug use, but Black people are jailed 4 to 10 times higher for law infringements. So I it is absolutely one of those things that we need to consider within our state law practices, but we need to comprehend first how our law system works. If you're a prosecutor, yes, you can say, like what Kamala did, you can say, I'm not going to prosecute this level of crime, but ultimately it's still a crime in your state, in your locality. You need to vote for people to change that law or vote for a referendum to change that law. That decision is on you as the voter.
yeah, for
Um,
real.
right.
That's what we need to do on all these states. We just passed it in Ohio last year, despite the fact that Republicans tried so hard. And I think they have just opened up the first cannabis shop at the end of July, beginning of August. So
Mm.
it's much better.
Listen, you know what, Angela? I'm going to highlight what you just said. Even the Republicans tried so hard, the will of the people, and that means Republicans voted as well. So, legislators or maybe spokespeople didn't think, but the people voted hard for what they thought. So listen, any other Republicans, I know I'm hopping around a bit, but in your heart, if you feel like you need to vote for democracy and freedom and what's right, don't feel like you're a bad person if you vote Democrat. We heard from a lot of Republicans at the Democrat. At one point, I was like, are we at the RNC? Or,
Right.
yeah,
There's so many Republicans.
yeah, the way they were
Right.
rolling them out, the former presidents, some of his people that had worked for him, as well as other legislators. But just a good example that in a state like Ohio, you can vote for things that are the benefit for the people
In
and
a
not
state
necessarily.
like Ohio, where everyone smokes weed and grows it too, because we're farm country. I don't know. People should stop fooling themselves and think that
Right.
that it's just only the bad people that are doing it. Like it's a lot of people.
It's a
A
lot.
lot
It
of
is a
people.
lot. It's a lot.
Wait, Terry,
So,
that's two, or are we still on number two?
Well,
so
we're still at number one. So
Oh,
yeah,
good,
I've
good.
number
done
two.
two. I think I've done two. I think I'm on three. No,
Okay,
no, no.
Let's
go
just
for it.
recap real quick. What was number one? Criminal justice.
So number one is um did she prosecute simple possession?
Mm.
And no, she did not. No, she did not. And that's just kind of flat out like she didn't, and when you think about it, just think of the logic. If you're the district attorney, why are you going after cases like that? That's not you're not wasting your time on that anyway. Even back in her time period, things were taken out. So that's fact one. No, she did not prosecute for that. She actually tried her hardest to keep those people out of jail, out of the system, because at the end of the day, she was about child predators, sexual assault, sex workers. She was harsh, but she was really harsh on gun crime, violence, things of that nature. If you want to call her tough on crime, you can call her tough on crime, but it's those crimes that people who look like me and you are typically tough on. Not the I'm smoking weed, I'm nude in public, or so. Well, actually, some people think that is a big crime,
That.
but yeah, like,
Well,
but like
tough on meaning from we're on the bad end of it is what you mean.
right,
Like people committing those crimes, we're the ones getting screwed more likely. So she's tough on those people that are harming us, more likely
right.
to harming our communities. Because I just want to because it's and as you say, it's nothing wrong to be tough. She's for the people. She's supposed to be tough on the people that are hurting the people.
Right. I mean, and you know, I would say this, Black people deserve justice too. We are just as deserving of a system that cares about when our property is destroyed, when our lives are in danger, when someone comes in our family. And I think that that message gets really lost and muddied in the chasm of brutality that we need to address. That's why I support. She's one of, oh, yeah, that's another thing. She's one of the, this is a segue, but she's one of the writers of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which does seek to address some of those avenues, excuse me, as much as you can at the federal level.
Right.
So this is a big issue, but at the same time, um, you know, I'm here on the ground. Most people aren't saying, I do think that there is a contingent of us that are saying, like, you know, abolish prisons, all that, rethink public justice, public safety. But I think that the louder voice is, I want the same type of justice and protection afforded to my white counterparts. When I see those nice little neighborhoods and they get their justice quick, and when something bad happens to them, they have police protection and they have this and they have the DOJ on their side. I want that for me. And I think that that is a very noble cause, something that she tried to do. So I'm going to try and speed through the rest of these facts. I just have like two or three more. Is that okay?
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're great.
So
Don't speed, because we want to make sure that we cover it. So
right.
you're fine.
Right. So another myth that happens, this is a very minor myth. I don't think people think about it anymore. There was one where people say this one attacks her authenticity. So they say Kamala Harris claimed to smoke pot in college while listening to Tupac and Snoop Dogg before they released any music. Now, this comes from one of her radio interviews with the Breakfast Club. And I kind of feel a certain type of way about Charlemagne now because I think he doesn't really know politics well. But the truth was, Harris was actually answering a question about her musical taste. It isn't what she listened to in college. And the radio host kind of confirmed this. And basically, what happened was they were asking her questions at several times, and she answered one and then another. And they try to do a gotcha where it's like, well, if you were in college in this year and Snoop didn't come out with an album in this year and blah, 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 blah. And they were trying to get her on something. And the reality is she just enjoys this music and she was just trying to be cordial in the conversation. And then we have the radio hosts come out and defend her and say, why are y'all trying to make it sound like that? So that's one thing. It's a very small thing, but I have to put it out there because I know a lot of people may believe that myth. The another one, myth 4, Kamala Harris laughed
Wait a
about
minute,
lock.
Terry.
Oh, sorry, my
Terry,
bad.
I'm sorry. No, because I just wanted to say, were they trying to play the black card? Like call her black card? Like if you didn't know this song, she
Right,
wasn't.
right. Well, I mean, all of it, but that's all it is. All of it is, how do I undermine your blackness? And what they were trying to do was they were trying to say, you do not like this music. Uh, and you're a hypocrite because we believe you locked people up for weed while saying you smoked weed. So it's a triple thing. They're using every type of way to say not only are you inauthentic, you're a hypocrite for being authentic. So whether you believe she did or didn't, it doesn't matter. It's a big lie on her. I saw them do it to Obama a couple of times, but because he didn't have to deal with the sexism, they weren't as mean to him about it. But it was
Well,
definitely an anti-blackness card.
just okay, FYI, that most people that, let's say, were born in the 60s or 50s, a lot of people have smoked weed, and a lot of people
Right.
have listened to rap music, and they still do. And people just need to get over themselves instead of like trying to, I mean, really, I'm so tired of people in this, like, you're not black enough. I've
Because
heard
I'm
Right.
this
thinking,
bullshit my
because
whole
she
life.
didn't know the song. It was because she didn't. It was, and I know I don't want to belabor it because it's so silly. Because people, music and what you listen to in college. I mean, anyway, it some quintessential song that she didn't know. Is that what it was? And they were trying to call her out for
No,
not black
it
enough.
it it was. So they asked two questions. The first thing was, did you smoke did you smoke weed or partake? And she got a Jamaican father. She lived through that time period. Not to belabor Jamaicans, of course, not all Jamaicans smoke. I'm making a joke, y'all. But she said, yeah, I did. And at the same time, they
Let
were
me
asking,
interject and just say, if she went to Howard in the '80s, she at least puffed. Now, somebody passed her something because I know I went to Howard with some people who did not smoke. But I mean, it's college. We have Supreme Court justices that were in black fucking face in college, right?
right,
And
right.
my God, that's a crime against humanity. But okay, so she puffed.
So she did. And then, but at the same time, they asked her, they said, okay, well, what type of music did you listen to? And so what they did was critics looked at that interview and they were like, she was answering what type of music did she listen to in college. And rather than saying, this is the type of music I listen to in general. And when she said what type of music she listened to, when she was in college, Snoop had not released his album yet, right? So they were trying to say, you just said a name, you just pulled a name out of the hat. You don't rep this community. You don't like this music because you didn't know when this happened. And the truth of the matter was, she wasn't conflating those two questions to what music do I listen to in college? She was answering two separate different things because they were rapid firing. They were just asking her like, stuff like that. And then the radio host would later come out and tell everyone, yeah, you got it all wrong. She wasn't trying to say this and that and the other. And I remember, this is tangential, but I remember her talking about her music taste. She would be listing like rap, R&B, hip hop, all this sort of stuff. And people would always second guess her. And I felt that not just with her questioning her blackness, I felt that it was I think that black
Oh,
women have to deal with this, like
that's
this,
sexism, 1,000%.
this type of sexism, especially because I think that people associate this genre with a male heavy target demographic, and it's just rude. It's rude, and it's you know
Yeah, maybe people don't remember that she hosted the 50th anniversary of hip hop,
hip hop,
or
right,
at
right, and you saw her
the vice
dancing,
president. Yes,
and
yes.
she
I
knew all
mean,
the words, like
yeah.
she's not, you know. But
She
it's
went
and
to
it also goes
Howard
to
in
the
the
Trump.
'80s. I keep telling y'all, and they said was it 34 out of 36 of her line sisters when she played AKA were at the convention. I'm sure God rest the souls of the other too, if they're living and they couldn't be there. Because what a moment, right? To be there
Right.
with your line sister. So I can tell you the experience, but Howard is diverse. It's not monolithic. So even though she went to Howard, I don't want people to think if you went to HBCUs that, all you do is listen to rap music. We know what we churn out as far as people like
Yeah,
Felicia
but
Rashad,
but
Kamala
your
Harris, but
college experience is varied and you do a
it
lot of stuff
is.
that you may never ever do again, or you might
You
continue to
do.
do it. That's the point of going to college, is to get
It's the
to
point.
have experiences, not just educational experiences, but cultural experiences and with friends and parties
What
and
we
whatever.
can say is that nothing horrible she did that she would be embarrassed of, because it would have come out by now, right? I know in my
Right.
Facebook groups, people are like, oh, every picture they ever had with Kamala Harris out, people are like, remain respectful, Vice President Harris, Vice President Harris, like y'all are getting real familiar. First day basis,
Right.
So just like the
I think
Obamas, they were squeaky clean. So the
the worst
people,
picture, the worst picture she has, I think, is maybe she dated Willie Brown or something, and she was just going out with him on a date, and that was it. That's all I could find. Like, I don't know
yeah,
if
and
you
that
call that
came up.
bad.
Well, yeah, and that came up for me when the former president said he was on a helicopter that almost went down with Willie Brown. And Willie Brown was like, I've never been on a
Oh,
helicopter with him. Remember that?
yeah, that
Right,
was
right,
crazy.
Wasn't it bizarre?
right. And like,
So
isn't that amazing how he said that and no one's like talking about, like, he'll lie like a stream, and then it's like people just forget. Like, it's like he was no one gets him on it. I hate that. I hate that.
and
Yeah, but I part of the problem is that he tells so many lies that I think that people just are like, yeah, he's lying. They just assume that he's going to be lying.
Right.
But
But his supporters don't care. And
yes,
that's whatever. Anyway, so last one, I think, well, the last two, I think, there's one where and a lot of this comes from Tulsi Gabbard. If you remember, Tulsi Gabbard did try to attack her on the debate stage in 2020, no, or was it 2019? I'm not sure. One of the debates. And she said Kamala Harris laughed about locking people up for marijuana after saying she used it. And then what I did was I backtraced it, I researched it. This happens from an interview during her 2014 run for Attorney General, and the newscaster asked her. She was told her opponent was in favor of legalizing marijuana, and the newscaster asked her thoughts, and then she laughed, and then she said, "Well, he was entitled to his opinion." So what Gabbard did was uh she conflated like her laughing at people being locked up to her saying, "Hey, if he wants to legalize weed in this year or whatever, he can do so." Um and I just think she was just so sinister during that debate, and it's no wonder she's supporting Trump right now. But
well,
yeah,
who listens
that's
to Tulsi Gabbard? I'm sorry. There's no
I have
reason to.
so that's another thing. I'm in Democrats Abroad China, and I had people in our Americans who were over there who were just suckered in by her. And I don't know if it's the appearance. I don't know if it's the appeal. Like it's infuriating. It's really infuriating. Last one. Some people say Kamala Harris locked up thousands of Californians as Attorney General for weed. And this one is like the biggest lie because attorney generals do not handle low level marijuana sales and possession cases. If you get elected attorney general, you're handling big corporate bank fraud, transnational gangs. You're handling crimes that are super big for your state. You're not going to be getting into that statewide position and worry about something that should be handled by a local prosecutor like a DA or someone in their office. And not only was that such a huge lie, marijuana arrests in California and incarcerations plummeted while she was attorney general because of the state law change. And I would point to the audience, look up SB 1449, which is in the state law California charter. So there's a whole bunch of the right wing is preying on people's lack of understanding or ignorance of state justice systems because people don't know what her job is. They don't know how prosecution works. And they're saying, here's a number, this is what she did. And they don't know whether or not she had control over it or not. And that's sort of what her criticism boils down to. And yeah, so later I can send you all of my sources, the graphs I use, and how I found them and dates and times. And that will be what I have for marijuana today.
Okay. Well, I think you've done a really great job at highlighting and dispelling these myths because they're basically just a lot of right-wing untruths that are being spread to the Black community and online and to other progressive groups, etc., to try to make it seem like Kamala Harris is somehow unfit. But as I said, the best way to make all this go away is for us to just make cannabis usage legal. And then everybody can get their records wiped and whatever else, and we can move on. And hopefully, Vice President Harris, once she is installed as president, will do a lot of things to help our nation.
And that reminds me, make sure that if you live overseas, that you have your overseas voter registration and ballot request in place. Our ballots start dropping 21st of September, so we go to votefromabroad.org. But also be sure to vote down ballot, and by that we mean every Democrat on your ballot, because when President Harris and Vice President Walz come into office, they need a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate so that they can actually form and execute the government for the people. So don't delay. If you're stateside, you can go to I Will Vote, or is it vote.gov. And even if you think you're registered to vote, double check your registration. If you didn't vote during the primary, maybe didn't vote last time there was an election, to make sure you're still on the roster. Voter suppression still is real. So sometimes that comes in the form of you don't have the right ID, or they close your polling place, or ta-da, you're not on the voting rolls anymore. So make sure you check that out. And tip, when you, for the overseas voters, request your ballot, make sure you request that it come into your email and check your spam folder.
Yeah, definitely requested by email. And if you need help, you can always contact our voter help email, which is voterhelp@votefromabroad.org. It's really important that everybody vote this year. This is not the time to mess around. Verify that you are, if you're in the States, verify that you are registered, because they are disenfranchising people by throwing people off the rolls, because it's still not too late. If you find yourself off the rolls, just go on and reapply real quick. And if you are overseas, definitely go to votefromabroad.org. We are there to help you in any way that you need to help you get your ballot.
You know what, Angela, do you have any details about the Zoom help we offer? Not we, but our team offers live Zoom help.
There's Zoom help on a weekly basis right now. I think it's up to 3 days a week. Once as it'll get where it's every day. If you go on votefromabroad.org, if you look at the top of the website, there's a little button that says voter need help, and you click that and it'll give you all the Zoom help information. It will give you everything you need. It's a one-stop shop. Don't go anywhere else. In fact, please do not, if you're an overseas voter, please do not go to your state website, because there's no guarantee that you'll get a ballot. Or if you go...
No, not even that. It's federally protected, the overseas ballot. So you don't have the federal protections. You won't get it December, January, September
September.
21st, you
That's
won't be
right.
able to use the federal write-in emergency ballot, which is another episode that you can execute. So it has to be, we have federally protected rights thanks to our military and long-standing overseas Americans. So this is your absentee ballot is great if you're going to be out of state. If you're going to be out of country, you need a federally protected
That's
overseas
right.
ballot. And what's the law? What's the acronym? UOCAVA,
The
Uniform
UOCAVA
Overseas Citizens.
and also the MOVE Act. Those two things guarantee our rights to vote. And if you use the federal absentee postcard form, which we have on Vote From Abroad, your rights will be guaranteed. If you go directly to your state website, your rights are not guaranteed for overseas voting.
Let's just say it's great that you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be out of country. I need to do a mail-in ballot. Great. Wrong if you think you can get that from your state. Go for Vote From Abroad. If you want to go to a government website, fvap.gov, primarily geared to military and overseas citizens. Ours is more user friendly. It walks you through. But here's the thing, in this age of misinformation, do your research. So what we just told you, the MOVE Act, UOCAVA, federally protected ballots for overseas voters. Some people, very intelligent people, don't believe that Americans can vote if they don't live inside the United States. So,
Yeah,
so
I
do your
ran
research.
into
Don't
some
just take our
people
word
like
for it.
that in Chicago. They were like totally surprised that we can vote. And of course we can vote. We're still American citizens. Like that's,
So, we're here to tell you, but do your research. Don't trust, double check everything in this age of
Mm,
misinformation. Do your
you,
research, and then you can proudly and confidently tell other people, I did it. Here's my research. Here's your research. Just like Terry did with us. Again, thank you for being early on K Hive, doing your research, and dropping those nuggets with us today. We'll see you next time in another Get Out the Vote episode from the Power to the People Black Caucus.
yeah, see you next time.
Thanks for joining us today. I hope this episode made you think and made you want to vote.
So do I. Plus, voting is the birthright they didn't even want us to have.
And we're women on top of that, and they didn't want us voting either.
So vote, vote, vote every chance you get.
Don't forget, votefromabroad.org for absentee ballots for U.S. citizens overseas. If you live in the U.S., go to iwillvote.com to register to vote and to verify your registration. They're throwing people off the voting rolls, so you really need to check.
Yeah, they're still doing that. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.